I'm talking today with Ray Girvan, a Whyalla legend, former Whyalla player, coach, administrator, club administrator particularly. So talking about to Ray about his time in Whyalla basketball. Ray, when and how did your basketball love affair start?
Okay, so my background was mainly in soccer and football, but through my now wife, her brother being an electrician at BHP, with a bunch of other electricians, particularly Darryl Ranneberg, who I believe had played basketball before, decided to start up a basketball team. And I'm not sure where they got the name from, but Nomads came up. And as I say, I was playing soccer and football at the time. And the last minute, Nomads decided to play in the 1971 winter season. And they were a player short. So through Phil's brother Paul, who was playing, they asked me if I'd like to play. And I'd never played basketball before, so it was something completely new. But almost instantly, from the very first game, I just fell in love with the game. For lots of reasons. I guess soccer and football in particular, you know, you're talking 11, 12, 15, 18 players. All of a sudden, small court, 5 players, lots of activity happening all the time, no rest periods. I just fell in love with the game and just have loved it ever since for the last 48 years. Still love it, still enjoy it, still involved with it. So as I say, the first time was Nomads in 1971.
Tell us about the growth of Nomads then. You were involved with Nomads for the 10 years.
Yeah, sure. So I started in 71, as I say, winter season 71. We played men's C grade. As I said before, Darryl Ranneberg was a player. He could actually play. The rest of us were just footballers, soccer players, or electricians. And we struggled a bit with, of course, like, you know, the rules and how it worked, and it's a bit different game to what we normally play. So Nomads went from that one team in 1971. I left Whyalla in 1981 after 10 years. We went from that one single team to, I'm guessing, 20 teams of men's, women's, juniors, also, if not the biggest, one of the biggest clubs in the town within a matter of a handful of years. And we went from, I guess, a bunch of guys, you know, disorganised, bit of fun, to a very serious basketball club with committees and you know, umpires and parents and all sorts of things. By the time I left at 81, as I say.
Okay, so tell us about the development in the game that you saw, the way the game basketball changed in that 10-year period.
So in the 70s when I started, basketball was a game that footballers and soccer players used as a way of keeping fit in the off season, I guess. So it was very much a game of typical country athletes, good at sport in general, played most of the sport the same way, see ball, get ball. You know, not much technique to the whole thing in regards to today's game, but certainly rougher than today's game. So the game changed dramatically from that, I guess, that typical country game. Outdoors, bitumen courts, wind, rain, it didn't matter, we played. So it didn't make any difference, we still played. To an organised game, probably mid-70s, the game became a lot more organised with the arrival of Mick Osborne, of course, whose history indicated he obviously knew how the game was played. Knew a lot more about the game than anyone in this town certainly did at the time. So the game went from, as I say, from a keep fit thing to a let's play basketball for the sake of playing basketball, enjoying the game of basketball for what it is. Wow. Basketball became the choice, not I'm a footballer who plays basketball, I'm a basketballer who plays basketball. You know, we started training regularly. Things like I mentioned before about the uniforms, we started to get, you know, what we call, everyone played in a pair of black and white shirts. All of a sudden we went to proper uniforms, I say proper trainings, coaching. I remember Nomads, we actually made a movie on how to play basketball on the Pride Terrace courts. Russell Brestwick or someone hired a camera, and we made a movie for our kids, for our junior teams. And we showed them how to hold the ball, how to bounce the ball, how to shoot the ball, blah, blah, blah. So we went from knowing nothing about the game to flat out loving the game and wanting to do everything we could to make the game better in Whyalla, essentially, and certainly in our club.
Can you tell us about some of the other players, stronger players that played in
those two
through
years?
that era.
Okay, so again, you know, in the early times, 70, 71 through to mid-70s, I guess, before the game changed in the way it was played. I mean, your athletes, your Danny Chandlers, your John Liddimores, your Graham Stringers, those sorts of people, I guess, Doug Matchett's, you know, they were athletes, they were footballers, they played some other sport. Parker Dix, they were good players in other sports who, again, played basketball to stay fit, and being athletes, they were, you know, good basketballers for their era, certainly. You know, big and strong and tough, and so again, C-ball, hit-ball type stuff. They were probably the better players of that era for sure.
And
I didn't see John Constable, but certainly had lots of reports about how good John Constable was at the time. Some of the kids I knew, there was a kid called Graham Moretti, I reckon, in those early days. Played A grade fairly young in that era of basketball. But yeah, they were probably most of the better players of the era, early days.
And then later on?
And then later on, so I guess, you know, obviously people like Mick Osborne who knew the game, wasn't big, but for us, being outside, a great shooter. I mean, compared, we don't spend a lot of time shooting given the weather conditions. It was either a layup or nothing. But all of a sudden, you know, Mick was an outside shooter who could certainly shoot the ball well, and then taught us how to shoot the ball correctly and well. Certainly one of them. In Nomads in particular, Kim Marston was a great player. Big, strong, you know, good rebounder, good shooter. His two kids went on to play district basketball for many years. Played state basketball, certainly. People like John Kirby, you know, people would say not the best player they ever saw in their life, but an honest, reliable, big man who worked hard to be a better player. And then the kids coming up, certainly people like Chris Cowan, people like Ricky Chess, and people like Balnace, people like Trevor Castle, who came through that system of actually how the game was played when the game changed. All of a sudden those kids were much better technically at the game, the basic skills of the game, whereas before it was a bit rough and tough. Now all of a sudden the technicalities held sway, and then of course that group of people started to get on top of the game, and all of a sudden people realised, yeah, we want to win this, you know, we've got to be more like them. So the game definitely changed mid-70s into what we can recognise as basketball today, I guess, a tactical game.
Okay, so when you started playing back in the early 70s, we were playing outdoors at McBride Terrace. What can you tell us about that as an environment to play basketball?
Okay, so I didn't play at the Velodrome courts, but someone tells me certainly it was an upgrade from there. It was 3 courts for a start. I guess it's hard to imagine these days when you play indoors, but 3 outdoor bitumen courts, rain, hail, dust storm, sunshine, didn't matter, you still had to play. I remember vividly, you know, when it rained, all the dirt run down off the hill onto the court one. You had to sweep the dirt off, obviously. I remember things like it was so windy. I mean, outside shooting was not just a skill; it was a massive, you know, potluck really. It's blowing a gale as it often does in Wales outdoors, and the wind was blowing a gale. And so again, you understand why it wasn't the philosophy of key or 3. It was key or key. I mean, it was the ball mostly inside. I remember things like players throwing long passes down the full length of the court. The ball would bounce on the court. The player would miss it. It would bounce on the ground and bounce over the fence into the railway yards. I remember playing outdoor carnivals in blazing sunshine. You know, 35 degrees minimum, and everyone's getting burnt to a crisp. But we had an example of that, I guess, we had some fantastic carnivals in those days. You know, lots of Adelaide teams came up to those carnivals. Lots of good players. Again, I mentioned to you before, I mean, people like Robert Klomp, known for his football, Andrew Downs, known for his football, Richard Hill, another who I think coaches Mount Gambier men's at the moment. I'm sure came to Wyla and played against us in carnivals. I mean, they were good days where, again, the environment today, kids wouldn't play in it, but at the time it was the best environment we had. I remember, again, vividly, Nomads, as a fundraiser, we played a 24-hour game. We played 24 hours straight at McBride Terrace courts in winter, so you can imagine what it was like, you know, for full 24 hours. And there was 12 or 15 of us. You know, we'd grab a 15-minute nap in the club rooms, and then back out on court while the next person had a nap. So, you know, and true story, we had a 24-hour game. We went home, had a sleep, and came out and training that night. I mean, it was, we just loved the game. It was just incredible. You go out and go out a few shots, and everybody else was there anyway. So I mean, it was. I remember again painting the courts. Again, kids today wouldn't dream that was possible. You know, I have pictures of myself backboard, painting the metal frames of the backboard in white paint and painting the lines in the court so that we could play. I mean, it was just again unfathomable to a kid today, but to us that was just what you did to play.
Yeah.
I remember digging trenches to put a cable in to run power to court 3. You know, I remember making scoreboards so people actually knew what the score was, because when I first started playing there was no scoreboard. The clock was obviously a mechanical tick 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 which you couldn't see, so if the game was close you had no clue, you know, what the story was. So we made these scoreboards up so that people could at least tell the score. People could shout out the time and then give yourself a chance to win, lose or draw. So yeah, it was different, interesting, and again people today couldn't believe that was the case. But that was the state of basketball at that time.
Do you have any memory of any of the good female players?
Lynn Sivic, certainly, Lorraine Scheide, Jill Balnace, great player as a kid, as a junior certainly, and came through the ranks and won I think won a women's MVP, certainly for Nomad she did. So again, there was some decent women players at the time. Yeah, and I know our women's combined team used to do pretty well on a regular basis. At country carnivals and things. So.
What are your memories of the carnivals of playing for Whaler, whether it's in Whaler or in Adelaide?
Absolutely.
What are your memories of those?
Oh, fantastic! We had some great times, and again, the early era, people like Dan. I've got some photographs at home. Danny Chandler, myself, Mick Osborne, Leo Casey, Kim Marston, Gunther Scheide, of course, Johnny Lidmore, playing in country carnivals at the old Forestville Stadium, the old Baldwin Stadium, in that early era of basketball. And then as time went by, of course, all the kids I mentioned before, Chris Cowan, Ricky Cheston, Greg Balnace, playing in country carnivals and having great success for us. Again, remember playing in semi-finals of country carnivals against some great teams. Mount Gambier were always fantastic teams in those days. Broken Hill were always great teams. I had some great games against those guys and being very, very competitive, but never been able to win one. But you know, I had a lot of respect from other country centres that we were a decent basketball team. Again, Mick used to coach in those days, so we're always well organised, always technically pretty good, and you know, I enjoyed some success for sure.
What do you see as the major, we'll say, differences between a district club like North Adelaide and a country association like Whaler?
Well, it's been a long time since I've been involved with the country association, but I guess the advantage the district clubs have, I guess, is that constant level of competition, I guess. I mean, there's 10 district clubs, the district association made up of the 10 clubs, and whilst on occasion a club or two may not be competitive in a certain age group, with the number of teams they have, North Adelaide has about 65 kids teams, so therefore each club would be similar, you know, somewhere between 40 and 70, maybe even 80 teams. It's a lot of kids, a lot of teams, very competitive, so you know, to play in Div 1, you've got to beat out, you know, out of 16s we've got 6-7 divisions of kids, and you've got to beat out 30, 40, 50, 60 kids. The last I went to the under 18s trials, it was something like 75 kids trying out for Div 1, 8-9 positions. So just the competition, I guess, on a regular basis is probably it. And then of course they've got access to what do they call it, the TI camps. They've got access to the state coaches on a fairly regular basis. East Coast Challenge, and other country kids can get involved in that, but East Coast Challenge stuff, Southern Cross Challenge stuff. There's always seems to be something going on. We're currently in the position of selecting our men's Premier League team for 2019. We've got a couple of under 18 kids in our team, and they're involved in under 18 competition. They're involved in stations. They just come back from the East Coast Challenge, so they've got basketball almost 7 days a week. So you can understand why some of those kids come out of steam at some point, why some kids drop out. But it's relentless. Kids in the city cannot play 2 sports at the age of 14. There's just not enough time. So it's either basketball or it's something else. So I guess that narrows the field pretty quickly to the best kids, the kids who are being successful, I guess. Or I assume in the country it's still a bit the same. You can still play other sports.
So what if you were a 14-year-old kid, would you rather be brought up in the country and have the range of sport, or in the city where you have to specialise?
I'm biased. I was brought up in a range of sports. I played soccer, football, baseball, table tennis, volleyball for a while. You know, so I'm biased. I mean, it was me. I definitely grew up in the country because you have the all-round introduction, different types of sports, different types of skills, I guess, which are all transferable in some way or another. So to me, that means when I get to 18, I pick a sport. I get to 16 and pick a sport. I haven't been doing that for 15 years straight. Whereas I say, I've seen lots of kids in the district level, you know, brilliant at under 12s and under 14s, play state, play Div 1, playing all these other tournaments. By the time they get to 17 or 18, all of a sudden they're a bit worn out. They've almost had enough. We see a lot of kids come to men's Premier League level, and all of a sudden it's just too much. It's just, I've had enough.
What are you doing now, Ray?
Okay, so I'm heavily involved with North Adelaide now. I've probably been there since about mid-90s. My two kids went through the district system. My oldest son's 33 now, so he probably started 89, 90. I, as a ex-player, coach in Whyalla, got frustrated sitting watching him coach by people who probably didn't know what they were doing at times. So I got frustrated, you know, started coaching late 90s, team managed, all those sort of things you do as a parent, your kids work their way through. Coached for several years. But for the last 7 years, I've been involved with the men's the men's Premier League side, so the highest level, sort of semi-pro. We have a couple of imports. We have some good players. This year we got Jack McVeigh playing for us. A couple of decent American imports. So I'm an assistant coach for them. I also, from the North Adelaide perspective, on a broader scale, I look after their Facebook page, look after all their social media, and I'm also the historian for North Adelaide Basketball Club. So I've spent hours, months, weeks poring over club minutes, club information, and the man who invented or created North Adelaide Basketball Club as Panthers back in 1939, a guy called Merv Harris, wrote a book which I've read many, many times and tried to, I guess, rephrase, reword that into a broader scope of North Adelaide's history over the last in fact, this is our 80th year, 2019. Right. So most of the history these days is on the webpage. There's a number of categories across the banner at the top. One of them is history, where I've created some tabs including club legends and written some of the history and some photographs and information like that. So certainly on our webpage there's a fair amount of information, but realistically it's all on my computer at home. Right. So you have to wait for the book, which is, again, I retired 4 years ago with the intention of writing a book about the history of North Adelaide. But it's, you know, it's a lifelong project. It's having the time. I'm involved with basketball, you know, 6 nights a week at the moment. I just don't get time at the moment to finish that off, but it's going to take years and years and years, I guarantee it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ray. It's a thrill to catch up and hear your story.
We feel it up tonight, doing all right. We don't really care what happens tomorrow. Up tonight, feeling okay. We don't want to waste another day. If you feel inside that happiness vibe, yeah, we feel it up.
Yeah, I'm loving life every single day. I got that sunlight on my face. We vibe high when we in them rays. We even smile when we in the rain. And if you're down, yo, I feel your pain. But rise up and give it everything. Yeah, we love life every single day. Every single day.
We feel it up tonight, doing all right. We don't really care what happens tomorrow. Up tonight, feeling okay. We don't want to waste another day. If you feel inside that happiness vibe, yeah, we feel it up. Let's get it.
Yeah,
We're feeling up.
I remember long roads with the windows down, fall asleep to the ocean sounds, no stresses. We don't need a plan, that's how you do when you living in a camper van. We taking flight just like a bird. I think we're higher than we ever were. Yeah, we can't stop, that's just how we living. Fresh fruit, green tea, veggies in the kitchen. The picture perfect life is just how you vision. Right around the corner, you just have to go get it. The sun sets on another day, but these memories will never fade.
We feeling up tonight, doing all right. We don't really care what happens tomorrow. Up tonight, feeling okay. We don't want to waste another day. If you feel inside that happiness vibe, yeah, we feeling up.
Yo, listen up. I'ma tell you something right now. You best not ever forget. This is it, man. This is your life.